I think. Yeah, I think now they can hear us. It looks like it was muted. Which is odd. No, I have it set to the UTAP in here. So it should be good now. I can see the audio that was moving, so we are good. That was weird.
That was weird.
Muted itself. Lock it in, and here we go. Good to go. We have, and what's great about the feet is that creates kind of a steady bottom for you, and the fact that you don't need to kind of be like wiggling it around, moving. You actually have a little bit to work with. Granted, it's not going to keep things perfectly straight, but allows some support as well. Monopods are great too because you can adjust them up and down. This one has a couple different supports, and it's great for shoots where you're out in the field and you need to move around a lot and you want some stability going for you. I'm a big fan of the foot ones. So there's that. So lock this guy. What's great is it stands straight up while you're doing things. Grab. What am I going to grab next? I'll grab that afterwards. I'll do my next after next. So we talked about the big things, kind of the tripods, the monopods for those stabilization devices. Now, what happens when you need something a bit smaller, where you don't have the room for a tripod or a monopod, or you need to hide a camera in some ways? You need it kind of to blend into your surroundings. So that's when we bring in mini tripods. Mini tripods are great because they're small, they're nimble. There's not a lot of work that goes in them. They're kind of a set it and forget it device. So if we were doing a shoot and we needed to just kind of lock it in here, just set a camera on the table. All set, good to go. So it's very much a set and forget sort of thing that you have here. You need to kind of hide a camera in a location where you can't fit a tripod. You're at a shoot where you're filming someone from an angle on a desk. Here's your mini tripod. It's great. Also, you can kind of use it as a cheap ghetto stabilization device to run and gun with, which I've done in the past. I wouldn't highly recommend it, but if you need something kind of quick and dirty to kind of hold and run with, these do work. What's great about the Manfrotto ones is that the legs do spread out. So if you need a wider base on these guys, you got it. So that's one mini tripod. And you can use this for DSLRs, GoPros, the Canons that we use as base cameras. Those are pretty good as well. Let's try to unlock it. Lock. So there we go. Then you got another type of mini tripod. These Joby ones are actually kind of funny because you can bend them. They're pretty flexible. You can, spread them out as far as you want. You can kind of do some really interesting things with them. You can actually bend the legs themselves. So if you need to hook it into something, instead of taping something or clamping something, you can kind of move things all around. You can also kind of use them as those kind of cheap stabilization devices. I was actually trying to grip this to the table earlier just for fun, see if it would actually kind of clamp in a weird, funky way. But these Joby ones are pretty neat in that they can do a lot of different things. They're great for smaller cameras, GoPros, things of that nature. One thing to be careful of with stabilization stuff is making sure that your stabilization device can kind of hold all the stuff you have. So if we start adding a lot of stuff to that camera, for example, this device might not be the best for it, or the Manfrotto.
How is there no sound?
How is there no sound?
It's literally showing on the screen here that we have sound.
Yeah.
That's why I joined the meetings.
Thank you. Like the microphone's coming in. All right. Let's test it. 1, 2. We have a microphone. Let's use the intro. Let's see what happens.
make any sense. It's literally picking it up though.
Yeah, so we'll switch the internal mic just for the heck of it right now, and you can see me talking up and down, moving. I don't know what's going on. Their microphones are muted. Check security.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, your microphone's picking up. 1, 2, 1, 2. Their microphones are muted. I have them set to mute because I always have everyone for tech and treats
Right.
set to mute. But
That's so bizarre.
yeah, microphone's picking up on that. So it's picking up on this guy.
In Zoom on our end, it picks up.
Yeah, I can see the microphone moving up and down, up and down. Let's see, where do I want to jump to next here? I just lost my train of thought.
Is that camera recording?
No, it's not.
Okay. Maybe we should do that as a backup.
I don't have it.
Okay.
It's all right. Next one I have is in my toys, and then I'm almost done with my little fun section, is slider. Sliders are big in regards to cinematography, kind of big fancy movie stuff. We have actually a really big slider in our other equipment room. It's massive, it's huge, it takes like 2 people to operate. This is a really fun little Benro slider that I bought, really used like maybe 2 years ago. What's cool about it is you can play it off. I need another clip for it, but I'll do that another day. On there. So what's great about this is that you can slide your camera from left to right on a tracking shot. Now you can just set up your stuff and bing, bang, boom. You can also adjust kind of the ease of how this slides. So right now I have it set to, slide pretty easily. There is kind of an unlock and lock mechanism on this. So if I turn it more toward the lock side, it's going to be a little harder to slide. And if I want it completely not to move, I can just lock it entirely and bash against it and it does not move. So great device to put on a flat surface. If you're trying to get a nice kind of sweet little tracking shot that you need for those kind of beauty shots. I like it, it's fun. And then last but not least, Sean, you're in my chair. So you're in my chair. So last but not least, and I don't know if I ever can see it. Yeah, the Zoom camera can see it. Is this guy right here, which is a Manfrotto setup that I got a couple years ago, which you can kind of clamp to a lot of different things. This is perfect when we do shoots at WATD in the radio station. So for example, their studios are really cramped. And then when you add 3 or 4 people to them, it becomes a really hot, sweaty, cramped nightmare. So instead of lugging a couple tripods, what we've done sometimes is lug in for a better term, these clamp devices. So it's basically you're building a clamp. It's something you can clamp it to a pole, a wall, an arm, for example. So it clamps in here, you screw it in. You can adjust the tightness and looseness of these. So this arm loosens and tightens. You tighten it up, and then you can attach your camera up here through a few different methods. If you have another device, you can put it in through here and tighten it, or you can just screw in your camera right here through the screw trap. It really works wonders for the. It's very much a set and forget it device, where once you have your shot set up, you can just hit record and walk away. You're not going to be moving around with this. It's great for those small locations that you need to get a camera into. You don't have the room for a tripod. So I think that covers kind of all my fun toys. So Sean's going to take over with the really fun toys.
Yes. Okay. So here I have what's called a Glidecam. And this is for stabilization, and it uses a weighted system here on the bottom. It uses a counterbalance to kind of counteract the weight of the camera. It won't keep your camera perfectly stable. You'll have to sort of support it with a second hand, but it'll make everything significantly smoother. So if I come around here, it attaches just like any tripod plate for the most part. Take this off the top here. You've got your plate. Attach it right to the bottom, same spot as the other tripod plates you're probably familiar with. And just attach it like so. Go. Just tighten it up. From here, you'll have to do some balancing. There's a knob right here that controls this top part moving side to side. And this one right here controls front to back. And that will control how it balances on the top here on this. So right now I have it fairly balanced. It's not perfect, but I think the point is illustrated. If I were to say, adjust the point at which the center of gravity is on this, it might change it drastically. So with this, just need to keep your hands and everything still as possible, but you're going to get a much smoother shot than if you were hand holding it like this. The downside to the Glidecam, I would say, is that it is like 15 to 20 pounds. It's pretty heavy. So your ability to actually film with it will require some physical fitness. They do make Glidecams that have attached supports to the person. So like a vest or something similar to that, I do believe, which kind of eases that burden. But that is not this Glidecam that we have. So if you are to shoot with this,
Sean, how long does it take you to kind of get it balanced?
it takes me 5, maybe 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll just be right away, but it's in the same settings I left it as. But the initial setup is probably going to take you a bit,
Okay.
probably about 15 minutes maybe, while you figure out the weighting and everything like that. I put all the weights on it to give it the most inertia. Depends on what camera you have. They're all weighted slightly differently, and you're gonna have to fine tune it by basically millimeters up here. And then the second stabilization method I had was if you were fortunate enough to have a drone, you can use this as a camera that is stabilized. Now, the downside to this is there's no audio being pulled. You won't be able to get any audio unless you record externally with a different device. But with a drone, you can get very stable shots at really good resolution. Just switch this. Let's change my settings here so we can see better. There we go. Okay. Now, try and show you on here. So people will zoom first. You can see it keeps it very stable as I move this around quite a bit. That's because there is a gimbal on the camera here that will automatically stabilize as best it can, and it does a pretty good job. I've used this on a bunch of shoots to get nice stable walking shots. This is probably yes. So as you can see, I walk around, a nice smooth shot. Hold down.
Sean, when you're doing that, do you also kind of using the monitor as like
As a reference?
reference
Yes.
point, or you just kind of
That way I just know that I'm getting a smooth shot and I know what I'm seeing. You could have a second person control it to have up and down movement.
Yeah.
And that way you can get a little more complex with it if you trust the person with the remote. Let's see. So for me, it's very easy because this thing is maybe like a pound. It's very light. I can hold it very carefully and I can just maneuver pretty reliably.
Yeah.
It's small, it's compact. You can get down low with it. You can go up high with it. And overall, it's just typically my favorite way to go when I don't need to collect audio or I have a second source of audio.
Yeah, I know with the Phantom 4, people were using that also as a stabilization too.
Yes.
You know, some people are using like the grips on it as a because it's easily grippable with the bottom grips on it.
Exactly.
Just don't put the blades on it
No.
when you're using it as a stabilization device.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't try to fly it with it in your hands.
Yeah. Let's see.
So that's what I have.
Okay.
But I was playing around with this. This I think is a fun way to maybe get some stabilization. Show an example of using it as like it's like a shoulder mount. So I'll put it like this, kind of like in a silly Y formation like this. Hold it.
That's what I think you were doing with that.
Yeah. Spread it like this. To attach it here.
It's the right screw.
It is. It's just
This might be the bottom piece you have to pop out.
yeah, there we go.
Also one of the things you have to, when you're using stabilization units, is making sure that you have the right screw thread
Yes.
prior to hooking everything up. Because stabilization units and cameras sometimes have different screw thread sizes. Usually it's pretty general, but
There's like 7 different sizes, but typically you only find 1 of 2
yes.
main ones. All right. So I've got it nice and screwed on here.
Look at you. Building a shoulder rig,
Very
cheap shoulder rig.
yes, cheap shoulder rig. And I'll put out 2 arms here. Sort of mounted against my chest or arms. Once you've kind of finessed it, sort of finesse it a lot. And from here, got a pretty decent, stable shot. It's not perfect, but offers a lot of control. Nice smooth pans. Dolly pretty nicely. Overall, pretty good if you're okay with just a little bit of shake in your shot and the ability to fix it later on in post to make it as smooth as possible.
Yeah, talking about things like post, Sean, I think one of the things that you want to do when you're shooting in general is try to avoid the amount of things that you have to fix in post.
Yes.
So that's why one of the reasons why using a stabilization unit is so important. I mean, cameras do have stabilization built in. And there are stabilization features in, things like, in your post-production software, but having like a stable shot will save you so much more time on the back end.
Absolutely.
So that's why as good as you think you may be at holding a camera for a long period of time, being stable to your hands,
You're not as good as you think.
or you think it's stable when you're filming, but when you actually go to watch it in post, it's not that stable. So using stabilization of some sort is going to save you so much time on the back end. That's why it's super critical. It's also a great, more aesthetically pleasing material.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the big reason why I recommend for any shoot, anything you're doing, take something, take a tripod, take a monopod, one of the smaller things, one of the grips. It's a no-brainer. If you don't use it, I understand, but have it so when you're out there, you're not going to get burnt. The other big tip with these two is practice. That's the big thing. Like, you can't go out and be like, all right, I'm gonna take this and not prior work with it. So it's really essential that you come in for training, play with it, take it out, try in a few different settings. So when it's time to actually use it for a real shoot, you're comfortable, you know how it works. So I think that kind of covers it.
I just want to quickly just talk
Go
about
for
the post-production
Sure. Go for it.
stabilization. It's very useful, but it's never going to correct for motion blur in a camera
Right.
shot. So you could stabilize something, but like it'll randomly just like blur in direction, and that's a pretty telltale sign that you or whoever shot the shot didn't completely stabilize it. You want to avoid that because obviously that's going to look really weird in your shots, not really aesthetically pleasing, and it's going to kind of distract the audience if there's like these weird streaks that keep appearing. Or it looks like the whole image just gets smudged whenever that happens. So post-production stabilization can be really good, but do not rely on it.
Yeah, so I think that kind of covers what Sean and I want to talk about. Any questions in the audience?
Can
Aiden?
you use a tripod on the dolly?
On that one, no, you can't. There is dollies for tripods, and we do have one. There's wheels that come that you can. There's actual wheel sets that are adjustable, and they kind of come out, and you can adjust your tripod depending on the width of its legs to it. So so you can use it for other things, but for that thing, for example, no. There are sliders that you can attach to a tripod. We don't have one, but that one does a pretty good job of kind of doing an impression of that. I'd say mainly because of weight on that thing.
Right.
By the time you add a camera and you add that actually has a little weight to it. So. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for everyone who came virtually, came in person. If there's any questions or anything that you want to learn, please reach out to someone on the staff. That's what we're here for. We're more happy to train you. As I've mentioned numerous times, Tech and Treats is more of a 5,000-foot overview of things. It's best to come in and really kind of sit down with us and actually go through it and actually, get really hands-on experience with equipment. Just like every other Tech and Treats, we're going to be posting this online. It'll be on our YouTube site in the next day or two. And then we should be back either in October or November for the next one. So thanks very much, everyone. And we will see you next time.